It is not going away, and I am happy as a pig in you know what. Of course, I am talking about the Dianna Russini, Mike Vrabel story. Dirty Diana, NFL concubine, passed around more often than a bong at an Indian prayer ceremony. Let's get into this. We have the latest from The Athletic, and it turns out employees at The Athletic aren't all that happy with leadership. There could end up being some heads that roll, so to speak, some firings that happen with upper management because of the way that they handle this situation. So let's get into this. As you can see, The Athletic plays defense. The New York Times owned sports vertical is facing internal blowback after rushing to defend reporter Dianna Russini, only for it to later be revealed the paper had quietly launched an investigation into her conduct, insiders tell status. So I think you had a few things going on here. They, of course, didn't want this blowing up into a big scandal that questioned all of their reporting. The Athletic is now going to be under a microscope if this story has legs, as it should, because you say, hey, well, if this is how Dianna Russini operates at The Athletic, how do their other reporters, how do their other journalists operate? It is a very legitimate question. I think also part of it that I don't believe this story touches on is Page Six broke the story. Page Six is part of the New York Post. The New York Post is a competitor to the New York Times. So I think that also plays a little bit of a role. Let's check this out. On Tuesday, Page Six published photos of the Athletics NFL reporter Dianna Russini and Patriots head coach Mike Vrabel embracing and spending time in a hot tub together at a luxury Arizona resort. Romantic resort for adults only. Let's not forget the interlocking hand holding. The images of the seemingly cozying pair ricocheted across sports media circles, raising immediate questions about the boundaries between journalists and the figures they cover. What looked like a problem for Rossini, however, quickly became a broader issue for the Athletic's top editor, Steven Ginsburg. Could be Ginsburg, I think it's Ginsburg, who provided a statement in Page Six before publication, dismissing the photos as misleading and lacking essential context. There is no context needed because the point I've made many times now, repeatedly, is it does not matter if their physical relationship was any more than what we saw. What matters is the question it raises for a journalist ethically, right? For Mike Vrabel, this is really a moral issue. For Dianna Russini, it's moral. It's also ethical. I think, to be fair, Colin Cowherd said that as well. As much as I can't stand the guy, he has a little bit of credit, right? We've talked about this. It's not just the private aspect of this between two married people. It is the bigger issue of reporters and how they shape stories, or shouldn't, but how they might be shaping stories when you look at what Dianna Russini has done with A.J. Brown all season long, and who knows what else, because this has apparently been an open secret since Mike was in Tennessee. For her part, Rossini told Page Six that the images didn't show the group of six people who were hanging out during the day alongside her and Vrabel. Again, that does not dismiss anything that I just said. As the week progressed, Ginsburg's knee-jerk defense of Rossini began to look shakier and far more complicated. Staffers who spoke to status fear the subsequent backtracking from leadership has only exacerbated a potentially embarrassing situation while turning what should have been an isolated matter into broader questions about standards and judgment in a crisis, kind of like the standards we have for Dianna Russini as a journalist. By Friday, Status had learned that the New York Times owned sports vertical had opened an internal investigation immediately. Keyword, immediately. Because that makes you question the comments by Steven Ginsburg even more. Why did he come out and basically try and savage destroy the story immediately by talking about being misleading and out of context if it was enough for The Athletic that he runs to immediately start an internal investigation? A probe that remains ongoing. We already know it's elevated to Dianna Russini being suspended. while the investigation is ongoing. That's how serious they found it to be. On Saturday, the Times itself finally reported on the developing investigation into her contact, noting that editorial guidelines require journalists avoid any activities that pose a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict so as not to call into question their credibility. Did you get that, everyone who's saying, keep shrugging this off as no big deal? This is nothing. This is private. There is clearly an appearance of a conflict of interest when Dianna Russini reports on the NFL, uses anonymous sources to get a story going, especially in this instance when that is directing the Eagles to be uncomfortable enough to trade A.J. Brown specifically to the New England Patriots, where our boy Mike Vrabel coaches. Dirty Dianna is a useful concubine. The timeline has raised uncomfortable questions for leadership at the Athletic, starting with a basic one. The matter was serious enough to warrant an immediate internal review and sideline a top reporter. Why did Ginsburg rush out such an aggressive public defense before all the facts have been fully established? Well, I kind of covered that already. I think part of it is there's a little bit of page 6 is the New York Post, but also he understood what a big deal this could be. This would be a bombshell that could get worse and worse, which is why no one else is touching this. I had a great video coming up on ESPN and some of their nonsense that I think you'll be interested. That'll be a lot of fun to check out. Staffers inside both the Times and the Athletic expressed concern over the paper's judgment on the matter, with one telling Status that their handling of the situation was unnecessarily messy. Another questioned how Ginsburg could omit any mention of the investigation in his initial statement if the probe had indeed started immediately, calling it reckless and premature, or worse, intentionally sneaky. And yeah, here, this is wild that someone could be in this position, that have gotten to this position and doesn't understand that he immediately should have come out and said, hey, we have no comment at this time. We have launched an internal investigation. We are going to see what we find. We're not going to comment either way until we have done that. And that is all we have. That is it. That is all Ginsburg had to do. And now he may find himself out of a job because while knowing he had launched an investigation, he decided he was going to go out and attack and disparage and try and discredit the story from a competitor outlet. Really, really, really messy. The Times is hardly alone in dealing with concerns about the relationships between reporters and the figures they cover, but the paper seeks to uphold the highest standards in that regard. Well, we know that's not true. Um, yeah, this is a bad look for the Athletic, for Steven Ginsburg, uh, again for Dianna Russini. This could get bigger and bigger. I just thought this was really interesting story. That this lots of blowback already, but the fact that this is happening tells me this is a story that is not going to go away, despite the media's best efforts to make it happen. Dirty Dianna is going to be famous for quite a long time, and there may be a lot of others that get caught in this net as well. Let me know your thoughts. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Really do appreciate it.